stupid. What's up, mother? Hey folks, welcome back to Look Good, Feel Good Sports, where we break down everything regarding the style and swagger of professional sports. I'm your gracious host, Jake Bell, and today we got a big one for you. This episode is sponsored by the Memphis Express, darling of the Alliance of the American Football. It's not even what it's called. Alliance of American Football, RIP. Also, I guess sponsored by the Johnny Football himself. Come on, Johnny. Give your boy a subscribe. So, back in early spring, things were, and let's be honest, still are, pretty bleak. The COVID-19 pandemic has spread absolute havoc across the world in every aspect imaginable, and that's not excluding the sports world. A lot of professional sports leagues, especially in the US, were very much up in the air on how they were going to have their upcoming season, or if they were going to have an upcoming season at all. But just as we sports addicts were beginning to fear the absolute worst, here comes the NFL, of all people, to throw us a bone. In fact, several, actually, by having 7 of their organizations announce that they were updating their uniforms. Woo-woo! Also, with the addition of the Washington football team fiasco, that makes 8. 8. Did you hear me? 8. That does not happen. You never see that. So, needless to say, we were all pretty stoked. Something to look forward to, something to look at, something to talk about while we are in quarantine. As I watch these updates unfold, not only did I notice the good and the bad, but I also noticed that all these teams that are changing their uniforms have something in common. I began to realize that this whole phase of revealment had an overarching theme, and this theme would be known as, well, to me anyway, as the sorry phase.
Sorry.
By this, I mean that most of these unveilments were the organization's way of saying sorry to the fans about whatever mishap they had with their uniforms or just with the team in general the past couple years. Throughout this past decade, we've been seeing this trend from NFL teams where they try to become innovative with new uniforms, go balls to the wall, get immediate backlash from the fans, and then a couple years later, backtracking and simplifying their uniforms. And this year is no exception to that. Now that it's been some time for the dust to settle, and also we've been getting a lot of in-depth, in-practice photos and videos of these new uniforms, I think we can finally give a fair assessment on these new updates. So in this second episode of Uni Update, I am going to break down all these updates, tell you what I think, and then rank them from worst to best. But before we get started, just a simple reminder to smash that subscribe button and smash that bell for your pal Jake Bell so you don't miss out on any future uniform escapades. Alright, let's get into it. Coming in at the number 8 spot, which should be no surprise to anybody, is the Washington football team. And it's also pretty obvious what they're sorry for. They are sorry for having a racially insensitive name and logo for their entire franchise's history. If you saw my last video, which if you haven't, you should. Take a look-see. I worked really hard on it. Then you would have saw that I already gave a pretty good rundown on Washington's updates. To quickly review, after years and years of controversy over their name, and thanks to corporate pressure, the Redskins officially retired their name. And due to legal battles over trademarks, Washington has yet to find a new name. And with the season looming, they decided to temporarily name themselves the Washington football team. They also decided to give themselves temporary uniforms, which are just stripped down versions of what they already have. Now, looking back, I may have been a little too harsh on Washington. Not the organization, of course. Dan Snyder is still probably one of the worst owners in sports, but specifically on their new look. I called it bland, sad, which technically isn't not true. I still stand by my stance that they look sad. It looks like the NFL grounded them, so they stripped away their whole look. But stepping back and really giving it a good look at it, The only real difference is the helmet, especially when you look at these in-practice videos and pictures. Not a whole lot has changed. My main critique, however, is still the helmet. I really wish they would have kept the white and yellow stripe. Doesn't make any sort of sense why they got rid of them. Also, if you're gonna have numbers on the helmets, which is perfectly fine, I really think they should have just matched what they had on their jersey, specifically white numbers with a yellow border. It makes the overall uniform look more, well, uniform. Having the numbers just yellow just makes the helmet look basic, and it makes the helmet stick out from the rest of the uniform, which is no good. So Washington gets the 8th spot just because of the situation they're in and the fact that they only really made small changes. And those small changes weren't really that good. Taking the number 7 spot, we have the Los Angeles Rams, and they are sorry for taking 4 years to find an identity. Or, if you ask me, they're still trying to find one. This past offseason, the Rams have made an overhaul of changes to their overall look. That's including their logos and their uniforms. And so far, they have been met with, albeit mixed, reviews. When arguably your best player in franchise history is straight dogging on your new look, you got a problem. However, I think we need to play devil's advocate for just a second. I completely understand the reasoning behind these bold changes. Since moving back to LA in 2016, the Rams really have struggled setting their roots down in that city. First off, they're in LA, which is probably the hardest city to make a fan base in. They've been playing in a college stadium, and they've also been using recycled old uniform combinations. It's really hard to set yourself apart from the other teams in the league when your primary home uniform are your traditional throwbacks. Also, with them moving into their brand spanking new state-of-the-art stadium that they're also sharing with the Los Angeles Chargers, who have also been making some bold moves to set their roots down the city. We'll get to that later, wink. I 100% agree with the Rams wanting to find a more modernized look. In early May, the Rams finally revealed their new digs. First reaction? Hated them. I was like, how can y'all this up? I thought they did way too much when they already have such good looks to go off from. It was a lot to take in, I'll be honest. However, just like Washington, having to actually see in-practice videos and pictures, I'll admit, they're a little bit better than when I first saw them. However, there are still things that I just cannot let slide. To quickly overview, here are the main changes. So the Rams updated their colors to a new royal blue and also a new yellow that they're calling Soul? Okay, which gives them a more metallic, modern look. The horns on the helmet and also on the jersey are redesigned. Besides their traditional blue top, yellow pants home look, they also have a new all blue option. They also have a brand new away uniform, which they are calling Bone. Yeah, Bone. Oh my god. Woo! It's a brand new color that they designed, which is supposed to quote-unquote resemble the color of a ram's horn and also the sands of LA. Yeah, okay, LA. Whatever. Pros. The helmet finally matches the rest of the uniforms. One of the biggest pet peeves I have in the uniform landscape universe really grinds my gears is when, especially in football, is when the helmet's primary color doesn't match the primary color on the jerseys. It's always just like a slightly darker tone, which may not, to the naked eye, might not look like anything, but when you see it on TV, it makes a difference, and it just bothers the hell out of me. And as good as the throwback uniforms were for the Rams, that was my only critique for them. So, thumbs up, you got that right. I actually don't hate the new horns on the helmet and jerseys. I know people are giving it a lot of flack, calling it the banana horns, because like if you really look at it, it's kind of like separate, like two separate horns, and they kind of, you know, resemble bananas. Would I like them just to stick with their traditional horns? Probably. But at the same time, it's like I said earlier, they're trying to do a new modern look. And you at least got, like, what else are you gonna do? Cons. Bone. Just bone. Bone. What the f is bone? The main problem, let me look it up. Let me look at this bitch. Yeah, it's just ugly. It's just ugly. Mainly just because when you look at it, sometimes you can't even tell if it's this new color or just white. And so you just think it's off. Also, when you look at it on the shoulders, you can see that there's a freaking white stripe or like white pattern. So it's just kind of like giving like a middle finger to you, being like, we could just have a basic away uniform, but not today. I can't blur out middle finger, so I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, just the numbers. Rams, take a note from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Two-tone anything just does not work in the NFL. Honestly, they didn't have to do this gradient. Am I pronouncing it right? Gradient, where it goes from yellow to white. It's just, why? There's no need for it. Just make it yellow. Also, on the bone jerseys, they have this weirdly specific design of the numbers that I can't put my finger on. Like when I was a kid, I had t-shirts, you know, of like, I don't know, let's say like superheroes or Dragon Ball Z characters, you know, and then on these t-shirts, some of them would have this like this kind of sticky print that they would just put on this cloth t-shirt, which just felt kind of sticky, and in the summer it would be awful to wear because it would just like heat up compared to the rest of the shirt. I don't know, this is a very weirdly specific reference, but I feel like I'm not the only one who shares this. This is what that reminds me of. It's just it's almost like a sticker. It doesn't really feel like a number. I get that they're trying to be artsy with it, but it just looks whack. Also, something that I didn't mention is their new word mark that they're putting on the jersey. Usually if any team is wanting to represent their name or their mascot, they usually just have it in the middle of their jersey, just right above the number. But of course, LA wants to be bold and just put this random word mark that they're calling the 3-stack word mark, which I guess is just because it says Los Angeles Rams. I don't know. And if you go on their New Look Rams website, newlookrams.com, they define this watermark as quote-unquote developed to reflect the spirit of designs currently seen across Los Angeles' dynamic lifestyle cult. Yeah, okay, LA. It just does not... It's just weird. It makes them look like soccer jerseys. And on the bone jersey, the word mark looks even worse because it's just a white square. I swear, it looks like a, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. Just on the top corner of their jersey. What? Overall, these aren't terrible uniforms. And looking at these real-time practice photos, I don't know if they're growing on me or if I'm just getting used to them. From the sense of the new colors and the redesign, the Rams accomplished what they wanted to do. However, I just cannot get behind the whole bone concept. It would be a neat third option that they could wear once or twice a year, but to have it as their standard away option is just way too bold for me. And that's saying something. Coming in at number 6, we have the Atlanta Falcons. And they are sorry for taking 17 years to update their look. Now, out of the 8 teams that changed their look this spring, I was very much looking forward to Atlanta's the most. They've been in this tier of teams like the Bengals and the Cardinals that have been in desperate need of touch-up. Also, their front office has been hyping up these looks. They would say things like they wanted to keep the past, but matching the modern progression of Atlanta. Cool. They apparently spent nearly 2 decades of fan research, pulling from focus groups online and social media. Needless to say, the anticipation was real. And did they deliver? Kind of? Literally a day before the release, a couple of behind-the-scene photos got leaked. They were actually supposed to release them much later, but since the leak, they just ended up just doing it the next day. And the first photo I saw was one of a model trying to fit into his jersey in what looked like a 2-tone red and black jersey, and I said, uh-oh, maybe it's phony, right? Maybe it's something to throw off the fans, and then there'll be something completely different that gets announced. It wasn't. So, quick overview. So, Atlanta has officially switched back to black as their primary color. And that's what they wanted to do. They said, own the red, but bring back the black. So they have 8 new combinations to work with, which usually, I'm all for multiple combinations. It's more things to look at. But I highly doubt some of these combinations are going to make multiple appearances. Like the one on the right corner with the white top and the red pants. You really think they're going to whip that out more than once? Highly doubt it. The overall look is very simplistic. Instead of the very jagged, crowded uniforms that they had before, they really did strip away a lot of those designs to really keep it simple. Just leaving what they call a stoop that's down the sides of the jerseys and the pants. They've also got new numbers, which are bigger and have a kind of like a 3D retro design to them. And we'll get to that later. They have a new helmet, which now has a matted finish. The logo is 30% bigger, and they also have a silver outline over the logo and also a silver face mask. They kept their throwbacks, which I'm a big fan of. They're kind of one of my favorites to see from Atlanta, so that's good. And they also have a new alternative jersey, which they call Rise Up. It's supposed to represent Atlanta rising from the ashes, which is a nice sentiment, but do you have to be so literal? Pros, I really do like the helmet. I like that the logo's bigger. I like the chrome face mask. I love the matted finish. It definitely, yeah. My favorite combinations are obviously the all red and all black. I'm gonna make a guess that that's gonna be their primary home and away uniforms. So if that's so, we'll see it a lot, which is good. Also, I'm digging the ATL. I wish it was just a little bit smaller, but other than that, I think it's a nice new touch. Cons, this two-tone Falcons, take a note from the Rams that took a note from the Jags. Two-tone does not work. It just doesn't. Not in the NFL. I really think they would have been better off just sticking to a red alternative jersey. I haven't seen any more photos of this uniform specifically, so maybe it looks better in the game than I'm thinking it's going to, but I don't know. I have this like sudden feeling, this thought that if I'm watching it, it's just gonna look like the players have their pants up like way too high. And also, they're stuck like this. They can't use that jersey for any combinations except for the whole Rise Up uniform, which is just the black bottoms. Also, I'm not too keen on their numbers. The whole 3D print is very much a 90s thing. Like, I love looking at the 49ers 1994 throwback jerseys that they've whipped out recently. They're clean, they're super cool. I love looking at them. But they're throwbacks. They're supposed to be a relic of their time. If they wore that all the time, it would be kind of it would lose its luster. When these puppies came out, when these unis came out, I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed. With so much excitement and hype around them, I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I was expecting a little more. However, the more I've been looking at them, the more I'm actually warming up to them. In the end, Atlanta did what they wanted to do. They wanted to bring back black and make it simple. And besides the Rise Up alternate, they did just that. I'll be keeping an eye out on the Falcons to really see what they actually look like in the games themselves. Who knows, maybe they'll look a whole lot better. Next up, and this might be a surprise to you, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I know, you're probably thinking, Jake, they barely made any changes. Why do you have them up so high? Because small but very intimate fan base. In this case, less is more. But before I get into that, you need to know what they're sorry for. They are sorry for whipping out those blue helmets back in 2010. Everyone hated those things. And since then, they have not done a thing to their uniforms, with the exception of having blue pants for the color rush. Here's the thing, the Colts are in a position where they can't really change their uniform. And honestly, they shouldn't. They are in the same tier of teams like the Packers, Raiders, Chiefs, where they have a timeless look that they don't really need to change. It's good for the NFL. However, that doesn't mean that they can't make small adjustments here and there to keep up with the times. I don't know. So In short, what the Colts did was just make adjustments to their numbers, their watermarks, and their logos. Their new numbers are actually their old numbers. By that, I mean they switched their numbers to honor the teams of the 1950s and 60s, which is kind of cool. They added a brand new secondary logo, which essentially is just a C for Colt, obviously. And inside the C is the indention of the state of Indiana, which is a pretty neat secondary logo. Now, do I think they're gonna incorporate that into their uniforms? No. I think it's mainly just for like merchandise purposes, like hats and t-shirts and yada yada. But say they wanted to just, put the secondary logo on their helmet for a game, I wouldn't be upset. Also, they changed their watermark that you can see in front of the helmet from their standard horseshoe Comic Sans-y font to a more slick, modern kind of font, which I could not tell you what it is, but it looks good. This is pretty simple stuff. So, pros. I love the new numbers, love the new logos, love the new watermarks. They're pretty simple changes, but the fact that they're at least able to change it is still good. Cons, now, this really isn't a con, it's just kind of I can't really put my finger on it. So, another small but kind of important detail that they did is on where you can see the Nike swoosh, specifically only on their away uniforms, the swoosh is gray. It used to be blue, but now it's gray. I guess because the face mask that they have is gray, so I guess they just did that to kind of match. I don't know, it's a very weird small detail that they added, and I don't hate it, but I don't know if I like it yet. So I'm just gonna have to keep looking at it more. This is a prime example of how small changes can really go a long way. These new changes offer a refreshing take on the Colts unis without them having to go bonkers about it. So, good on you, Colts.
Sorry.